Good morning. Happy Flag Day Friday to everybody. I am Marsh, joined this Friday morning by Rick Blaze. Good morning, Rick. We've got a big show, but more importantly, how are you doing this morning?
I'm doing fine. It's really, really early, but it's a lot of really good games. So it's like I like that chain, by the way. I see you, got your beanie on with your. Come
Uh,
on, Marsh.
You know what it is? You know how I do
Yeah,
over here? You know?
he's feet this morning.
Yes, we try our best every other day. Actually, you know what? No, only when Rick comes on. That's when we try our best.
I
Well,
can
who
dig it.
better be trying their best tonight are the Boston Celtics and the Dallas Mavericks, who are looking like we could be wrapping up the SWBA Finals as the Celtics own a 3-0 lead after taking down Dallas on the road in Game 3, thanks to a hissy fit of a fourth quarter from Luka Doncic. So the big question, Rick, we talk next Friday. Well, I'll talk to people before then, but you're going to be on the show next Friday. By the time that
Yeah,
happens, and by the time today ends, are the Boston Celtics champions of the SWBA?
I, yes and no. I hope that the Mavs at least get a gentleman sweep going on here. Um, they did a good job of going to the finals, but I'll be honest. If you get swept, then it's gonna feel like to the general public everything you did to get there meant nothing. Like you got to at least win a game. People talk about Luka Doncic crying. I've been saying that. I used to. He's the biggest crybaby. He's worse than LeBron. I said that last week, and I'm glad somebody's finally putting the spotlight on it. Um, yeah, they got to at least get a game, but this is Boston's game. They played to their potential. Looks like this time. So they're just having their way. They're really having their way, and there's nothing the Mavs can do about it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree at all with the take about Luke always being like that. I think that's what's honestly made him get less calls than what he's getting now because the refs, not that the refs would ever not call things because you're complaining, but I think there's certainly a certain level of fatigue around Luka Doncic as it relates to not only the fans but also the referees. If you if you think about refs, they need to get the call right, obviously, and they if every single time you are just touched, grazed, impacted at all, they're going to stop thinking that you're actually getting fouled. Much like
Right.
somebody who flops on the defensive end, eventually they're going to stop rewarding the flops, or at least they should. And I think that's happened with Luca. But to your point about this needing to not be a sweep, I think that's spot on because this is a Dallas team that beat some really good opponents
Yep.
to get here, right? They took down the top seeded Oklahoma City Thunder, even if everyone agrees that that Thunder team wasn't really built as your traditional number one. They took down the Minnesota Timberwolves, which is credit to them. But they also were favorable in a lot of these matchups, despite being not favored in any of them. This Boston team's a problem, and I think the finals and the playoffs as a whole always does a really great job of exposing us to who players are in actuality. It's the learning lesson that we got from Jokic last year, and we've learned and we've confirmed that Jaylen Brown is an absolute problem. That this kid is this guy, this man, whatever you want to call him, is an absolute problem. And the growth that he's had over the last 2 years from when the Boston Celtics really relied on him heavily against Golden State, and he couldn't go left in that series. He's nothing like that player right now. He's been their best player. It doesn't matter that he's their best player. This is not is Jason Tatum or Jaylen Brown better. That's not the point. It's that Jaylen Brown, the growth that he has made since he entered the league when he was a 34% shooter to what he is now, which is probably the SWBA Finals MVP. It's impressive, Rick. It's really impressive.
Yeah, I mean, hey, $250 million better buy you something, right? And he went in the lab and he got better. And I'm just glad that finally we're talking about Boston playing to their potential and not
Hmm.
flopping out and not flaming out like they've done in years past. They could have done this last year and the year before. This is extremely hypothetical. This show could have been about, oh, Boston, can they get their third championship in a row? That's the kind of team they've had within the last 3 years, right? Centered around Jason Tatum and Jalen Brown. But I will say the Porzingis makes a difference. Uh,
Hmm.
uh, the holiday kid makes a big difference as well. So they're prime and they're ready to go. Last thing about the Luka Doncic thing, I agree with you 100%. When you do all that flop, and shame on Luka because Luka plays where he's from. They play best. It's way harder to get a foul where Luka is from. So he's
Mhm.
adapted this new crybaby style that he didn't grow up playing with at all. So shame on him for trying to take advantage of that situation. Just kind of blowing up in his face, making him kind of like the bad guy, really.
I think the last thing that both of these groups, and specifically the star players, are on two different timelines of it. But the Boston Celtics, in order to win a championship, you need to have learning lessons along the way. It's why nobody thought the Thunder were going to win. It's why, even though Minnesota looked awesome, no one thought they could win. It's why everyone assumed Denver was probably going to win a championship, because you learn the lessons through failures. And the Celtics have had a long list of failures, and I've talked about
Oh
this
yeah.
plenty of times before. Their list of failures started much sooner than any other team, because they made it when Tatum was a rookie, when Jaylen Brown was in his second year. So they had this unfair disadvantage of everyone just saying, well, now you got to win because you made it there. But they learned all these lessons. The Mavericks are learning them. Luka is learning them and learning what it takes to be winning at this level. It's why experience continues to matter in the postseason, especially the later you go, as the game really changes from what it was for the first 82 games and the first couple rounds. Moving on to our SimWorld prep action, where we are getting a graceful third round matchup with the OGs and Ill-a-delphia Elite as the originators, with Rick, your number one guy, Cooper Flagg, was absolutely incredible in the final 4 minutes of that game. 13 points, 6 of 6 shooting, dominated to close that game
Yeah.
out against Bad Boys Basketball and moved the OGs on for a third matchup with Ill-a-delphia Elite in the Founders Region Championship game.
Yeah, I mean, Cooper Flag did what a consensus player of the year would do, and that's lead the team when they need the most. He struggled for the in the first 3 quarters. Credit to Bad Boys Basketball for playing some good defense, but like the cake mix that's putting in an oven at 350 degrees, it will rise to the top, baby. The cream always rises to the top, and number 32 has shown that. I'm excited about the matchup with them in Ill-a-delphia. This is going to be one for the books. Arguably, this could be, this should be arguably, possibly, the SimWorld Prep Championship game, but it's not. But how lucky we are to get what could be considered a championship game for SimWorld Prep here in the third round for the Finals region. It's going to be exciting.
They split the first two. First one back in January was a defensive slugfest. Only 2 quarters finished with a team scoring more than 20 points, 64-56 Ill-a-delphia win. And then second game back in May, not too long ago, less than a month, was a just offensive showcase, 80-73. The OGs got that one. It's going to come down to basically whoever can play the game that they want to and what stars can get rolling, right? If Cooper Flagg is Cooper Flagg. And last night, for 3.5 quarters, Cooper Flagg was not bad, but he was not impactful, right? Christ Coates was the one that was carrying them throughout that game, and he took over. And when he took over, and he did this against the North in the first round, when he takes over, there's just still not a guy in Timber Pup. Even if I've been, what's up, Lila? Even if I've been saying that this group is not necessarily a championship team because of their depth, Cooper Flagg is a championship team in and of himself. And he has looked like it here as they head into that matchup. It's going to come down to Monte Parson versus Cooper Flagg. It's going to be a dandy. Do you have a pick for that one before we just kind of touch on everything else that happened last night?
Oh man. Oh, that's a toughie. It's a toss-up game to me. If I have to make a pick today, I'm gonna go with, you know what? I'm gonna go with I'm gonna go with, some may say, the improbable. I'm gonna go with Ill-a-delphia. I know that sounds crazy. Um, but I'm gonna go with Ill-a-delphia. I just like, I said it earlier. I like what Coach Drees. I like the team that has molded into being Coach Drees like on the court. And you get 10 guys who will run through a wall for you. You can do anything. I think Coach Drees has his team like that. Not saying Coach Dodge doesn't have a good hand on her team, but I'm just saying I think the community with that team is a little bit different than anybody else in SimWorld Prep right now.
I felt this way about our Rocky Mountain matchup when they were going up against Best Coast Ballers. Not that this was a similar stature matchup, but I felt like it's a coin flip. You could talk to me and say, "Look, I got a crystal ball for you." And Ill-a-delphia walks out with a win, and I'd say, "Okay, probably Monte Parson, Nas Hall got rolling. That makes perfect." Jay Mills gave us some support off the bench. I agree. Okay, I trust that is what happens in the future. Or you could walk up and say, well, the OGs actually just dominated and Cooper Flagg was unstoppable and Christ Coates got rolling a little bit. Jay Lasser got rolling a little bit. I'd say, okay, yep, that's believable. I can't make a pick because I literally do not know. And I think that's not a great take for anybody to listen to. I don't know. It's
So
going to be a
you
great
put
game.
me on
That's
a
what I do
you put
know.
me on a line for a pick, but then you don't make a pick. That's some Marsh stuff for you, isn't it?
Hey, I don't got the jump. I don't got the vertical to finish the alley oop, right? I just feed up to the alley.
I
I
like
know my
that.
position. I'm a perimeter player. I'm not an interior guy. I'm going to let you get vertical and you finish off for me, all right?
Boom,
Let's
boom.
head on to some guy that certainly has some vertical news. How about a little commitment news for you? Where we have some news out of Bay Area where Adonis Knight, fresh off of putting up very nice 15-2-2 last night as he helps
Hmm.
Bay Area avoid an upset over Beyond the Arch, has committed and he's going to Lexington, Kentucky to be a Kentucky Wildcat next season, joining the ranks of Glory Tate, Jamison Johnson in Kentucky, Adonis Knight, and this has been a quick turnaround for him, Rick. He went from being a relative unknown to when the departure of Trey Hyman occurred, he took off, and since then he has been dominant for this Bay Area team. He's been their best player, and all that is rewarded with a scholarship to play for the Kentucky Wildcats.
Yeah, this has been a case of addition by subtraction that helped Adonis Knight. We see it all the time. People step up. They are the unknowns. Then they get the opportunity. It's all about opportunity. Shout out to Adonis Knight. Shout out to Bay Area. Shout out to Coach Pope for putting Adonis Knight in that situation. 2 months ago, no one would say Adonis Knight going to. Who is Adonis Knight? And they damn sure ain't talking about Adonis Knight going to Kentucky. Oh, what time can do an opportunity. Shout out to that young man, man. Congratulations on not only the win, but the commitment to Kentucky.
And, we've been on this train for a while, Rick. Mid-season of a SimWorld prep season is, in my opinion, the time where you say, I know what I have for the first 15, 16 games. I'm going to literally just not do that anymore. I'm going to see what else I've got on this roster because over the past couple of weeks, we've seen Adonis Knight, we've seen Christ Coates really
Yeah.
emerge as a great player. We've seen Jay Mills in an extended role. We've
Mm-hmm.
seen Aiko Kasai in an extended role. There are a ton of really, really great basketball players in SimWorld Prep that simply are just caught in the trade winds of an elite player in front of them or just kind
Yeah.
of dominating the play style. Adonis Knight is the perfect example of what happens when you say, in this case, through no choice of their own, with Trey Hyman leaving, you have to give him more minutes. You have nobody
Yeah.
else to choose from. It's why I've never agreed with what's happened in Showtime, where they are just said, Bronny James, that's our guy. And then this season it was Cole Webb, that's our guy. There's some really great basketball players at Showtime that never got opportunities. Mark Chisholm, Israel Vines, who I thought in limited minutes looked fantastic. There's opportunity out there, and so credit to Adonis Knight for taking the bull by the horns and earning a scholarship that, like you said, nobody thought this was going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
There are some really great basketball players that are not even getting offers to Kentucky. Adonis Knight is, and that's where he's headed there. Congratulations again. Let's head to our recap from last night where it
Yes,
was
sir.
not short on activity. Let's start where we started just a moment ago. Bad Boys and OGs. A big night from Cooper Flagg. We talked about 21, 4 and 3, 13 points in the final 4 minutes of this one. They rally back and defeat the Bad Boys basketball squad 76-69. We get a matchup, as we talked about just a moment ago. Third time's the charm. Ill-a-delphia OGs in the rubber match. And it should be a dandy. That one's coming up. Founders Region Championship game, Rick.
Hey, those guys did what they had to do, and they did it well. You got Queen City and Southeast. I told you, this is their time of year. This is what they do. Throw everything out the window in the regular season. This is how they get down. They get the dub 74-61 over Queen City. Jackson 17, Kadarius Sachs 13. Brett back at 12. It just they had 4 players in double digits. What I'm saying, the whole team came out to play. This is what Southeast Select does.
Well, SimWorld Middle East was oh so close. They were halfway there to an upset number 2. The Pixie Dust fell apart in the third quarter, and they couldn't put it back together in the fourth. Kai Newby, 25. Leonardo Fields, 14 of 14. And APAC advanced with a 75-71 win. Hussein Al-Azmi, 25 in the final game of SimWorld Middle East's career. It was a dandy. They went out swinging. Chances to win it at the end, not too good enough though.
Game against the Middle East has been a great game. You went out swinging like he said. And our nightcap was Beyond the Arch versus Bay Area. The number 8 seed was looking to try to get a dub. They hung around for a little bit, but Bay Area led by Dying Hardaway with 20 points. Bowie did his best with 21, shot 9 for 12. He was unconscious, but not enough for Adonis Knight. Damn Hardaway. Coach Pope got this bet. Bay Area was left for dead before race to 1. They was throwing dirt on Bay Area and coach's grave. Oh, how we have risen out of the grounds. Bay Area going to the third round, baby. Congratulations to that team and Coach Pope for the win.
Hey, I would say it was an easy path, but that would imply that beating the player of the year was an easy path. So that would just be fuel to your fire. So I'm not even going to bother to say that. We got one more quadruple header on deck. That's coming up this Saturday. That starts at 1 p.m., goes all the way through the afternoon. Ill-a-delphia OGs. I mean, that's called eating dessert before the appetizer
Absolutely.
even gets there.
Absolutely.
Ill-a-delphia OGs to start us off. Yacht Club Southeast Select, APAC Europe, Rocky Mountain Bay Area. That's all on Saturday. That preloads are Tuesday, Wednesday, where you're going to get one game apiece. That obviously is the semifinals before Saturday, this coming Saturday, week from tomorrow, the 23rd, our championship game. So we are in full swing. All the first round upsets out the way. I think we've got 8 teams left that everyone can pretty well agree has got a pretty good shot at winning a championship. That's coming up this Saturday. Regional championship round starts at 1. OGs, Ill-a-delphia Elite. Rick, thank you for coming on to the show. Appreciate it as always. Thank you all for tuning in here on SimWorld TV, the only place you can watch any SimWorld prep action, soon to be SimWorld U action, as that finally has a resolution. So all things coming up SimWorld prep. Appreciate y'all coming in. Have a great Friday. Have a great weekend. We'll talk to you, obviously, during the broadcast tomorrow. We'll be back on here on Monday on SimWorld TV, the only place you can see the game, be the game.